Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming today. Thanks for watching this live uh, that we are doing now after trying for some time. So it's a real pleasure to do it today in English after doing it in French and in More. So I'm talking from Burkina Faso, from BBI Burkina Business Incubator. So we are a business incubator in Burkina Faso, and we try to incubate people to advise business owners, entrepreneurs, early stage idea holders, in order to give them capacities and networking, that is the resources for them to become real entrepreneurs and successful entrepreneurs, I mean. So this is basically what we do. And personally, I'm Soulamane Konkobo. I'm a French-speaking person. I speak English, so I'm trying to do the presentation today in English. So I'm sorry if, if it is not in French. If things were in French, it would have been better. But English, we're going to try to convey the message to the English-speaking public. So welcome on board. Today the topic is about how to build an efficient team. In fact, the notion of team is quite important. Why are we talking about it? Why have we chosen to talk about teams or team building or teaming? In fact, in today's complex organization, teaming can be the only way to get things done. Because let's place it into context to say that when you're starting your company, usually you are very small. So most of the time you don't need other people than you. So you are the boss, you are the secretary, you are the accountant, you are the salesperson, the marketing, the finance, the accounting. Yeah, and maybe you have 1 to 2 employees that help you to do the work. But as the company grows, you definitely need somebody, or you need some people to support you, because you alone cannot do the whole job, the whole work of the company. So this involves recruiting people who have the skills, and you will start organizing the company. And usually the kind of organization that we have is that the company is organized into some functions. So we have the marketing function, the sales functions, the finance function, the technical function, or the production function, the administrative function, so that you hire people to be at the head of each department, to assume the different tasks and manage the different teams. So usually that's how things operate, especially when you start growing. But when it's still small, yeah, the issue of teams may not be your first concerns. Although teams are very important, because you can't achieve anything without teams. Because in general, it comes out that the fact of having bad teams accounts for the failure of many companies. And people who have already started a company, we people who are in business, who recruit people every day, we know the importance of team. That's why we've chosen to talk about that. In fact, there is a research that about entrepreneurs and their failure that says that the number one top reason for the failure of companies is usually that the entrepreneurs start the company without making sure there is a product market fit. That is, the product that they deliver, they offer to the market, does not respond to the need. In such situation, usually it's a flop, it's a failure, and the company goes bankrupt, and you close up or you close down and finished. or maybe you come back. The second reason of the failures of company is that companies may run out of cash. So you start the company, you design the product, you have a team, and you have a contract. Now you need money to function. That is the working capital, and unfortunately, you don't have it. Maybe you relied on a bank, or you're relying on a friend or family to support you in terms of finance, and you don't have it. And the company ran out of cash because you need money to pay for salaries, you need money to pay for the rent, for the electricity, for the different bills. So you run out of cash, and this is the number 2 reason for the failure of companies, according to this study. And the number 3, the third reason, if you want, is problems of not having the right team. So the first is the no need, there's no product market fit. The second is the company runs out of cash. The third is no, you don't have the right team. Because you start the company, you start selling, you even want to maybe to go to another country, you are conquering the market, you are selling hard, and then you need people. And if you don't have people, you can't be the CEO of the company and you can't be the accountant, the sales, and you're selling in if you're in Burkina Faso, you're selling in Ouagadougou, you're selling in Tenkotogo, in Bobo Julas, in Wayukia. You need people on the team. So that's why it is key to talk about teams today. And because teams are key resources to for the success of companies. Now, but what is, let me say, a good team? Because that can be a question. What are the features of a good team? First of all, we need to make a difference between what is known as a group and what is known as a team, because not any group is a team, but all teams are a group of people. But the difference is that a team, in terms of definition, is a set of people, a number of people with complementary skills. That is very important. Complementary skills, who are committed to a common purpose. Common purpose is key. They can also be committed to a set of performance goals and approach for which they hold themselves mutually accountable. The notion of being mutually accountable is key, is instrumental on a team. So there are 3 things that I pointed out: complementary skills, common purpose, and mutual accountability. So these are things that are quite important. But when you take a group of people may be just people who meet somewhere. They don't necessarily have the same purpose. They don't hold each other, or let me say one another, accountable for anything. So all teams are groups. Some groups are just people assembled together. And teams have task interdependence. That is, X does this, Y does that job, Z does this job, and this is, the work of the company is executed by all these people towards the common goal. So the common goal is quite important. It means there is somebody somewhere who sets the common goals and organizes the work of the company. That's why we talk about the managers. And a manager usually has 4 types of functions. That is, they play some roles that fall under 4 functions. The first is the planning. If you're a good manager, you need to plan. If you don't plan, you are just a firefighter who, You just come to fight fire every day, and you're victims of events. Now, the second function a manager plays is organization or organizing. Organizing the teams, organizing the resources, coordinating all so that things work together, like in a band, so that all the music that is produced is nice to be listened to. The third function is leading. Leading is key. It contains it relates to the notion of leadership. A leader is usually somebody who has a vision and who has these abilities, these skills to share this vision to a group of people so that this group of people appropriate that vision and they commit to achieve it. So it involves some skills, of course. A leader needs to be a good communicator, a good team player, a motivator, and it should be fair and all this. Now the fourth element is control, because you need to control. You plan, you organize, you lead, but you need to control to make sure there are things that work and some don't work, and then you come out with corrective, actions so that you try to fill the gaps to correct what doesn't work well, and then so that the company can still move forward. Move to the objective, toward the objective. So these are the functions, and I think we should know them. Of course, we're talking about team forming, how to form a good team, a winning team, a team that performs well. But a team is in a company, because we're talking about teams in companies. Now, so the task interdependence is key in a team. While in a group, there may not be any task interdependence. In a classroom, for example, you may come together, you may be a group of people. Everyone has their own goal to succeed, to get their diploma at the end. And maybe sometimes you become teams because you have an assignment, you have a quiz together to achieve the same goal. And after the assignment, then you become a group, because usually, because you have your own goals, and then that's all. This is an example. In a company, it should not be like that. Things should work like in a family, and this should be managed. This should be led by somebody who has a vision, who has some values. Now, what team activities or projects are supposed to be is that usually there should be communication, there should be the notion of responsibility, the notion of collaboration, and the notion of teamwork. These are things that are important. And teamwork is usually 70% of the whole, of the assignment that we need to do. People should be together to work, to be productive, to be creative. Especially when it comes to creativity, you need people to come together to generate some ideas and to sort them and then come out with the best ideas. And this can translate into innovation, innovative product. And talking about companies, any company that is not innovative is, at the end of the day, will definitely close down. So innovation is also part of the game in companies today, especially in the context of high competition. So you need to innovate, and you need teams to support you, to reflect, to think, to come out with innovative ideas. And we'll come back to that point when we'll be talking about the features of good companies. Good teams. Sorry. So it takes me to what Steve Jobs said. He said great things in business are never done by one person. They are done by a team of people. And when you listen to somebody like Steve Jobs, he says entrepreneurship is hard. That if you don't have the passion, you quit. You give up. But on top of all, you need to have a team of passionate people. People who support you, who are there. For example, when you are in a situation when you want to abandon, some people to motivate you, to stimulate you, so that you come back again. You have some stamina, some courage to advance. So team is key for entrepreneurial success. Now, there is usually what is called positive team member behaviors, because positive teams usually display some behaviors that are to be supported. The number one is openness. A good team is made up of people who are open. That is, they're willing and open to work with each other and to listen. They're willing to listen. They're willing to learn. They don't, play hide and run and hide and whatever. And they like you have your own victory and the others have their own victories, and you're competing in the same company. No, open-mindedness, and they work together because, as we said, they should be working for the common goal, which is a higher productivity, which is a higher, sales, higher motivation, higher, wealth of the company. Now, the second element of positive team is supportiveness. That is, the members of good teams are usually dedicated to the team success. They are willing to pitch in and help out without expecting anything else, from the other. They are there to help. They listen to each other. They listen to others' ideas in order to learn and come to engineer them, to use them for the success of the company. The third element is the orientation, action-oriented. A good behavior of a good team behavior, positive team behavior, will be action orientation. That is, usually people are engaged, they are committed, they are reliable, they rise to challenges, and they usually don't procrastinate. You know the notion of procrastination, saying that I will do it tomorrow, I will do it the day after tomorrow, and they never do. So being action oriented means you do the work, you execute. Because at the end of the day, the most important is not the ideas, the most important is the execution. And good teams are good executioners or good executors. So they execute. Now, the fourth element that I have is positive personal style. On a team that is positive, people display positive attitude, they focus on motivating others, they're enthusiastic. The notion of enthusiasm is quite important. On a team, people are usually enthusiastic, they are friendly to each other, they are kind of patient because they are there to support. Supportiveness, you remember. They are not competitive. They are not just there to fight, fight small fights, to see I'm the winner or whatever, because they are seeking, they're working for a common goal, common victory. And they are not there to be argumentative, discussing, arguing. They come together, get on well to do the job for which they have been recruited. It may be in a project or in a normal company. Now, the other thing we should point out is that there is what we also call, important team competencies. Usually you have the experience that people bring to the table. They also bring skills and knowledge to perform the task, because you actually need a group of people who have the experience, who have the skills, and who have the knowledge to do the work. For example, if you're a factory which manufactures some fruit juice, you need technical guys to be at the factory, at the assembly line. You need marketing guys to do the marketing, to promote the product. You need salespeople, you need accountants, and they have some technical skills to do the job. And usually companies need people with experience, because experience is important as usually you learn from your experience, and there are mistakes you made maybe when you were starting your career that you will no longer repeat, and that brings some value to the company. And of course, there is another important team competency that is important to point out, which is a problem solving ability. Let me remind you that the life of companies is characterized by decision making, and usually you need to make good decisions, and sometimes you need to make timely decisions. When you lag, you may miss opportunities. So good teams are teams that have the skill of solving problems, because anyway life is a continuous process of solving problems every time. Even when you have a plan, it may not work as you planned, and then you are there to be sometimes the firefighter, as I was saying at the beginning. So the process of problem solving involves some steps. For example, clarifying the problem, incorporating diverse ideas, as I was saying, because you need to have many types of ideas, different ideas, various ideas to put in a basket. You sort them out until you get to the right action or the right decision. And you need to make effective decisions. The process should be effective, and these decisions should normally take you to achieving a goal. So this is very, very important to know. Now, the other question that is usually asked is, what is the ideal team size? What is the ideal size of a team? The recipe is that smaller teams are better. Smaller teams are better. You may have a big team, but you may have small teams inside with a special missions, special goals to work on something. Because when the team is small, there is less process loss, less coordination and quicker agreement. And this also requires less time to develop, less time to develop it. A small team, more engagement with the team because each member is more engaged. Nobody can kind of cheat because they know each other. So they're more influential, and there is the notion of that feeling of more responsibility for the team's success. So usually people say good teams are not more than 8 people. Some people say 5 people, but not more than 8 people. Otherwise, usually on a team, you may see some people who are there at the beginning and they always find excuses to disappear, and they never come back until the others have completed the job. And if you look around you, you will always see that when there's a team project, a teamwork, there is always somebody who disappears at the beginning and never comes back until the work is done, and then you want to be associated with the work. Usually, only one person does the job, 90% of the job. This is the leader who actually does the job. And that takes me to the schools where when students have their assignment, usually there's only one person. So this is not a good team. A good team is everybody should work, should contribute, and to the common objective in a company. So in a company, that's very important. One notion or a notion that is key in my talk of today is the team composition. So how should we compose, or let me say, how should teams be composed? One notion that should be focused on is diversity. Diversity is key. I said it before, but allow me to insist on that, on the fact that diversity is a source of wealth. team members have diverse knowledge, they have skills, diverse perspectives, diverse values that they bring to the table, and this is key. This is instrumental to make good decisions. So a team should be diverse, and I will tell you after that how diversity can contribute to sound decision making. And as I was saying, the life of companies the life of companies is everyday good, decision making. So the advantages of diverse teams are that people view problems and alternative from different perspectives. You see things from the perspective of a woman. I see things from the perspective of a man. This Quadio says things from the perspective of a young guy, and Mr. Job sees things from the perspective of an old guy. Mr. Chang sees things from the perspective of an Asian or Chinese, and Mr. John sees things from the perspective of a British guy. And all of these people, when they come together, this leads to good decision making. So I'll come back with some numbers to illustrate what I'm saying, because I have a research that worked on that notion of diversity, because it is key. If your team members are all like you, then you are missing the opportunity of making good decisions, because nobody will question you. You all think the same way, and these are things we see every time, and things are not moving. There is no change, there is no innovation, because you all think the same way. If you want to avoid that, you need to question that. You need to question what is known as the comfort zone, so that some people on the team should say, no, boss, no, I think you should do it that way. You should introduce things that way. You should do things that way. And that's a source of innovation, a source of wealth. This is very, very important, and I would I would like to emphasize that. The other thing that is important is that better, diversity shows a better representation of team's constituents, which is also important. Of course, there are some disadvantages when teams are diverse. It may take longer to become high-performing team. People need to adjust, to know each other, to accept each other. So the leadership should be key in that, to put people together so that they flock together and then be we say, birds of a feather flock together. So they should be the same birds from the same family, and they work together. If you fail to do that, it can be very difficult, and there is a kind of susceptibility to fault lines. Less motivation for cohesion and coordination. Now, that study I was talking about says diversity can increase friction by 15%. That is, friction is kind of conflict, misunderstanding by 15%, but inclusion boosts result. So diverse team included will boost result up to 60% of the time. Now, there is another study that says diverse teams make better decisions, as I was telling you, up to 87% of the time. So the study says on a team where you have only male, that is man, usually in a team where everybody is a man, the team will make 58%. 58% of the time they make good decisions. That is, 42% of the time they make bad decisions. So you're missing out opportunities of making 100%. This is teams where you have only where you have only man. Now, when you have a team where you have women and men, it increases the rate of good decision making to up to 73% when you have men and women. Now, when you add to men and women, you add, this what we call the age, that is younger people, older people, women, men on the team, it increases it to 80%. Now, when you add age, gender, you add geographic diversity, it increases the quality of decision making to up to 87%, which is great. It means when you're building your company, make sure you have people of different age, people of different, gender or sex, people from different places. So this gives you a chance, the opportunity of making a decision. This is very important to point out. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out is in a team, there is a need to build trust, because without trust, you go nowhere. You need to build trust, and this is the work of the leader, of the manager, to build trust, to declare intention, to invite feedbacks, so people, the trust, they can express themselves. Things are clear. You accept, disagreement. That is, disagreement being a source of, good ideas, confrontation of ideas to lead to good decision making and higher productivity and every positive things. Welcome and embrace conflict. Usually conflicts are not always bad. Conflict can even be a source of change, a source of more integration, because after some conflict in the company, people may come out with new ideas, and then it's a source of promotion, of advancement for the company. And in a company too, in a good team too, people should be able to share, give, take, and give, and let others know what you stand for. Maintain high integrity. The notion of integrity is key. Honesty is also important. People should be honest to each other, and keep confidential information confidential, and be fair. Being fair is important. The rules should be clear to everybody, and that's how people will really commit. When there are rewards, everybody is rewarded, and it's important. Now, there is also the notion of team contract components. There are some components in a team contract. That is, the goals should be clear. What the team wants to achieve is important. The roles, so goals, roles, what needs to be done, and who will do it. In that contract, you should also include the processes. That is, how the team collaborate and communicate, and the interpersonal relation. You need to define it. If you are the manager or the leader of your company, you need to define the interpersonal relations at the design or the planning level. So this means how the team members interact on a personal level to have the job done, to have the work done. So these are key important. That is, goals, roles, processes, and interpersonal relations. These are what we call team contract components. If you want to establish a team contract, you need to fix clear goals, clear roles, clear processes. That is how to do it, and define the interpersonal relations. So in a sort of summary, when you want to have there is what we call a team effectiveness model. Team effectiveness model, sorry. Because you start by designing the team. And when you design the team, you need what we call the task characteristics. You need a team size. We talked about that. The team composition. Remember diversity. Now, the other thing in the team effective model is team effectiveness. For team effectiveness to work, there is work to establish. You need to satisfy member needs, maintain team survival. The other component is team processes. We talked about the processes, how things should be done. Team development, team norms, team cohesiveness, and team trust. These are part of the process. And there is another thing that is important to raise, which is the organization and team environment. That is, how do you reward people? The system of rewarding. How should communication work? How do you communicate? What is the organizational structure? It's very important. The organizational leadership. What is the style? Is it participatory? Is it autocratic? Is it laissez-faire? Is it and all these styles that we know, transformational or transactional. And also you definitely have the physical space where people interact. And normally this should, with these things in mind, with these different elements in a team, it should lead to the celebration. So we are at the end of the presentation, and as a summary, I would say we've chosen to talk about the topic of teams because today we've seen so many companies face some difficulties, some challenges in performing their work and attaining the objectives because they don't have the right teams. Or maybe they have the resources, but they don't know how to organize them together, to build a team, to build a band where they play wonderful music so that people can dance. So we've chosen to talk about it because it's important for companies. So we said it's important. That's the key thing I like about teaming or team building or human resources management. The diversity point is key. You need to, when you want to build a team, you need to have diversity because it increases the opportunity of making good decisions. And we said when you have a team where you have mixed gender, you have mixed ages, you have people from different geographical settings, so you are increasing or you increase the opportunity of making good decisions 87% of the time, which is great. And I think the other thing to point out is that there is a research that shows that the first element behind the failure of many companies is this lack of product market fit. That is, usually people launch a product without making sure there is a need. And when they launch, they fail. That is very important. The second element is they launch the company, but they don't have the money. Maybe they have some contracts, they have some customers who need some product, who need the product, who need some work, some support, some training, some, but unfortunately they don't have the cash, they don't have the money to manufacture the product. Or maybe they don't have the money to pay for salaries, to pay for raw materials, to pay for the rent, to pay for, different, bills. And then they close up or they close down. Now, the third element, as we said, is the problem of team. They don't have the right team. Because you start alone, you start with your brother or whatever, but at a point when you are big, you have bigger operations, you need a team. And usually some people fail to have the right team, the right people on the team. And it's a source of failure. They don't have the people to do the work. You may be brilliant, you may have the ideas, but you can't do the whole work alone. So remember that building a team is important for the success of your company. And human beings are resources. That's why in management we talk about human resources management. And when we say it's a resource, it means human beings have some resources in themselves that should be tapped into. You tap into the resources. You should know how to tap into these resources so that it helps to build the company, to build success, and to build common success. So I will end up by these words to say that actually teams are key, and we should really factor this in so that whenever we are trying to start a company, we're trying to start a project, we're trying to initiate something new, we need a team. And we need a good team, not just a group of people who usually are not, who usually don't hold each other accountable for anything, but people who hold each other, who have common goals and work together because they want to celebrate, they want to achieve common goals. Thank you very much for being there today. Bye-bye.